Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody from the Big Easy right now, and it was not an easy night for SMU, losing to Tulane 59-24. The Mustangs didn't even show up, kind of felt like team might have stayed out on bourbon all night. They did not. They stayed out by the airport. But nevertheless, drops, poor tackling, kind of inconsistent play calling. Tulane out schemed them and were in better position to make plays all night. Start to finish, it was bad for SMU. They were in position to battle back and change the tide of the game. They did not. Rashee Rice dropped a fourth down, what probably would have been a touchdown. He might have been tackled at like the 10 or something, but still would have been a huge play in the game early on. And instead, Tulane goes right down and scores. He had the muff punt that led to 7 points. Kickoff coverage was bad all night. I mean, the list honestly goes on from that one. And I asked Rhett Lashley if he was embarrassed by the game. Well, actually, I didn't ask Rhett Lashley if he was embarrassed by the game. I was trying to ask if he felt his players were embarrassed by the game. But he let me know that he was very much embarrassed by the game. And I think all of the bad things that SMU's been doing this year that are concerning, the poor tackling, the kind of strange substitution patterns with, for example, running back. Kamar Wheaton starts the game. Look, Tyler Levine has been the most consistent player the last 3 weeks, and SMU chose to roll with Kamar. He doesn't really get much going. He had 2 nice runs after SMU opened with a nice throw and catch from Tanner Mordecai to Dylan Goffney. And then he's stuffed on third and short, and SMU doesn't get it. I think that, like, leading off with Kamar is a great thought. Right now, Tyler Levine is the best player offensively for SMU and totaled 144 total yards of offense, caught the ball well, did have a fumble late in the game, but came after I think he got like some sort of stinger on his arm and was, went back in, battled through, and I think he had a tough time hanging onto the ball. He didn't say anything. I didn't ask him about it last game or after the game, but that's kind of my hunch as to why that ball just came flying out on that fumble. But you let off with Kamar instead of going with Tyler Levine. SMU was not good on third downs. Looking it up right here, they finished 9 of 20. And I'll try to pull up the first half as I'm talking about this. First half, they were 1 of 8 on third down. And I felt like SMU on third downs slowed the tempo down way too much. They were kind of cooking on downs 1 and 2. I thought they were getting good push on the offensive line, quite honestly. The run game was much better. And then they'd come and do a substitution, slow things down, go to the line, audible, and there wasn't a third down play that worked out. Save for 1 in the first half. And then 9 of 20, they finished 9 of 20. And that was a lot of kind of the offense picking things up a little bit in the second half. SMU finished with 275 total yards in the second half and averaged 5.4 yards per play. The first half, they finished with just 195 total yards. Not bad, of course, but they really didn't get much going. Points-wise, they had turnovers. Tanner Mordecai threw an interception. We talked about the muff punt already by Roger Daniels. And I just think that all the bad things that this team has done all happened at the same time against a good team that was ticked off that they lost to UCF. They needed a win. They wanted to win more than SMU. My biggest gripe on both sides of the ball from this game, quite honestly, are the substitution patterns for SMU offensively. I felt like they really, really hurt them, especially on third downs. When you're trying to convert, especially in the first half when the game's definitely still in the balance. I mean, even though it was 21-0 at one point, they could have turned the tide. They could have changed that game around. And even as the defense in the second quarter, able to hold Tulane to 7 points, able to hold Tulane to 7 points, that was the opportunity for the offense to strike, and they just couldn't end up getting things going well enough to make plays. So, I think you have that on the offensive side of the ball. There just wasn't enough Tyler Levine to go around. You factor in the drops. I mean, I felt like after last week's game against USF that the receivers would bounce back. We'd see, some guys make plays. I mean, we saw Jordan Curley in the second half with the game still very much in the balance, drop a first down reception. We saw Tyler Levine fumble, of course, that resulted in a turnover on downs. He would have gotten the first down. You had Rashee Rice drop that fourth down catch that would have really moved things well into Tulane territory with the game. I think they were down 14-0 at that point. Yes, they were down 14-0. That was a 14-point swing, quite honestly, because even though SMU's defense got a stop the next drive, the muff punt put Tulane in position, and they went up 21-0, and it was kind of off to the races from there. The drops were brutal, even before the end of the first half. Dylan Goffney drops a kind of I think it would be considered a sail route. I don't believe it was an out route based on where he was running it from, but that would have put Colin Rogers well into the red zone. I believe it would have been at the 15-yard line probably. That maybe changes things. Going into the half, could have been down 28-10. Big difference. 18 points. It's just a different kind of mentality. And instead, they're down 21. Long field goal. I thought time management was a little bit off on that drive. Not enough pace and tempo. Again, the drops just killed them at the worst times. They had 2 drives that were killed by drops. And then defensively, the tackling and on special teams, the tackling was just awful, especially in the safety group. Multiple times they had Michael Pratt. And actually, the first touchdown drive for Tulane, they had Michael Pratt dead to rights. I believe it was DeVere Levelston who had him in the backfield, and he got out of it and then was able to run for a few yards. And at the end of the play, Jalen Samuels gets him with a face mask. Drive extended, touchdown, 7-0 Tulane. That was almost a sign on the first drive that, okay, all right, we see what potentially might be coming here defensively for SMU. And I mean, Tyjae Spears, what a beast. 13 carries, 121 yards. Shaw Clayton Johnson, 8 carries, 75 yards. Michael Pratt added 10 carries, 70 yards. And Iverson Celestine, 7 carries, 39 yards. Tulane ran the ball, as Rhett Lashley put in, is true, every which way and any way they wanted to. And this run defense has been bad all year. And I mean, at this point, 11 games into the season, everybody should know what they are now. And look, I felt like they did enough against USF with Brian Buttee. Like, all right, they can kind of build off that. And they were in position to make some tackles. There were some keeps by Michael Pratt that I thought were wide open and not well defended, guys crashing down, guys out of position. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being in position to make the tackle. One guy bounces off, 2 guy bounces off. Elijah Chapman, friendly fire on Terrence Newman, ends his SMU career all along the sideline because at least two, there might have been 3 guys couldn't get the ball carrier down behind the line of scrimmage. And they were running into the boundary. There wasn't like room to go anywhere. So it is brutal. And I wrote about this in the 214 at ontheponyexpress.com. Check it out if you'd like to subscribe. They need an influx of toughness. They need an influx of talent. Still, that has to happen. But SMU's issues, without a doubt, lie with toughness. And toughness can be developed to an extent. You have to have a very instinctual part of you that allows you to be tough and play with physicality and do all of those things. Nick Roberts has it. I do believe Brandon Grosley has it. He had a couple, nice hits, and I think he's kind of tackled fairly well this season. And Elijah Chapman has it. I think Jalen Samuels has it. He just is still learning. Isaiah Smith. There are a couple guys, DeVere Levelston. I mean, there are guys on this defense that have it. It is just not there. And then you couple that with, and Scott Simons alluded to this a couple weeks ago, that they did not handle tackling like they should have in both the spring and in fall camp, whether it be managing injuries when the safety room was completely banged up, to the whole offense being in red for fall camp, pretty much. I mean, Bo Corrales, Jordan Curley, Rashee Rice a little bit. I mean, there were guys hurt left and right. Brett Lashley said after the game, we've got to fix tackling this offseason, and we will. We'll see if that happens, but they have to have a major overhaul with how they go about tackling and how they develop their tackling. They have to go out and scout staffs that do it well. They have to meet with people, network about it. It is just not good enough. And it is what it is. But there's nothing that's going to happen right now that's going to change it for this season. But what they have to do is they have got to do a complete overhaul of it in the offseason, spring practices, and just go for it, because this team right now is not tough. They were in position early in the season to win some of these types of games. Maryland, that one got away from you. TCU, slow start, sinks your ship. Turnovers, again, we can go back through some of the losses, and they didn't capitalize on opportunities to win those games. Even UCF, first half, they didn't capitalize on all the opportunities they had to go up 24-0, 24-3, 24-6, whatever it would have been. This game, start to finish, pretty much had no feel for SMU that they could come back. Somebody could have made plays and they could have gotten back into it, but there was never a feeling that, all right, they've chipped away, they're getting close, boom, they break through and score 14 unanswered. It never came. And to have that type of showing on national TV, ESPN, and not get up for it at all is completely inexcusable. Everyone at SMU should be embarrassed. My concern, and I think we're going to see a lot of players move on for whatever reason. Some guys that aren't playing at all, some guys that have already left the team. Chase Cromartie's gone. We'll see what happens with some of the guys that we reported would likely move on. But to have them, and because of that change, maybe there's going to be a different mindset that comes in with some of those players. But what I saw was, for the most part, there are people that care. Tanner Mordecai cares. Tyler Levine cares. I think Rashee Rice cares as well. I think Nick Roberts cares. Isaac Slade-Matatia cares. He gathered up the whole defense and lit into him on the sideline. I just don't think he's just playing good football. So you have all these things that have happened, and I felt like the sideline last night was lifeless. When things happened, there was a little bit of, oh, dang, here we go again, and that was it. There was no picking guys up. There's nothing. It just, we're down really low at Tulane. It's a bizarre press box, but you can really see like what is going on, who's talking to who, how it pans out. Katie Hall got lit into by Rhett Lashley after the fight late in the game. Like, I don't know what was said. We didn't end up talking with them about it, but Rhett had mentioned, they want to handle situations like that better. And I think he was talking about it. But like, there's just nothing going on. There's coaching up a little bit, but there wasn't much like player interaction with each other. Like, it just was as cold. It was just, they were just trying to get out there. And I'm sorry that I'm struggling to explain that, but it was that bad and that apparent. And even in the press box, we were talking about it. And, what do you write about that game? RJ Maryland was terrific. Tyler Levine was terrific. Other than that, not a lot of good things to write home about. Not that that needs to happen. It's just was that bad of a showing start to finish. And it's completely inexcusable for them to show up that way. You are on ESPN, and I know Tulane's a good team, but that same Tulane team has been beaten 7 times by SMU. I know it's different teams year to year, but SMU did not fall off as much as Tulane jumped back up to lose 59-24 and to not be competitive, quite honestly. And that's where it's going to, this is a very important offseason for Rhett Lashley. You've had some signs of success, especially against lesser teams. And you've played some really, really good teams very hard. And those things should have been building blocks. And then you have a performance like this. Next week's game against Memphis, huge. Got to have some sort of response. And I mean, they could lose and SMU can still bounce back and get better and improve. Like if they lose to Memphis, I would liken it to when SMU lost at Tulsa, Sonny Dykes' first year, and they missed out on bowl eligibility. SMU will be bowl eligible, but they've got to find a way to win on next Saturday. And if they don't, it'll kind of have that feeling of the loss of Tulsa. How do they respond? Do they go out and overhaul some things and go in and get and hit on some portal additions and really revamp things and pick it back up and create a new mindset and go win 10 games? Or do they completely fall off and we see this, cracks in the ship start to happen? This offseason, Rhett Lashley, and he's been on a whirlwind the last 10 months now. And so you save the roster, keep the guys around, do all those things. Perception-wise, it would have been brutal if they lost, so many guys at TCU or whatever when he took over. He settles into a new job. He's got this going on, that going on. He's calling plays. This offseason, he absolutely has to take some time to really self-scout this team. And I know they will, but they have got to have really difficult conversations this offseason about how do they coach certain things? What are the expectations for the team? Kamar Wheaton gets hurt, plays through his shoulder. I think it was the left shoulder is kind of bothering it, and then plays through it and then ends up not going back in the second half. What type of toughness and where are you at with some of those things? The mindset of this team has to change. And it's going to require some difficult conversation. It doesn't require being anything more than somebody who sets very high expectations and start them with yourself and at the top with your coaching staff. But you don't have to be yelling and screaming and going nuts about it. But you've got to find a very healthy, productive way to change the mindset of this team and say, look, guys, that was year one. We did some things that are, that helped us and helped us grow in the right directions. And we had some really bad learning experiences or potential good learning experiences for this team to turn around and for this program to take off. They're bowl eligible in their first season. This is not completely doom and gloom and all of that. I think there is still a good chance for a bright future at SMU with Rhett Lashley at the helm. There are things that are going to happen for that next step to be taken, which Rhett Lashley was hired to fully lead and take SMU from a non-November finisher to finish in November, compete for championships, do that. And because of last night, they certainly didn't do that, and they don't have anything to play for, quite honestly, on Saturday outside of sending out the seniors the right way. So gut check time. How do you respond against Memphis? That's going to be important. It's not going to tell the entire story of where this program goes. Thursday night was an inexcusable performance, and anyone that tells you otherwise is just out of their mind. You cannot show up like that. So a lot of self-reflection needs to happen between the players and the coaches and how they got to that point. There are a lot of basic things SMU could have done, and it looks a lot better. Drops, turnovers, just making a tackle here or there. But they didn't. And whatever reason there is for that, they've got to figure it out and make some changes to get the most out of these players, because there is enough talent to certainly be competitive in a game like that. They weren't on Thursday night. That's an issue. We'll see how they bounce back. I like SMU's chances to bounce back against Memphis. Just think senior day at home. I think this team is talented enough to beat Memphis. It'll be a difficult battle. They've got a lot of time to think about this, let this one settle and sink in. Tyler Levine spoke with us after the game, and you get a better feeling talking to a guy like that. So they've got some things to push probably from the player side, like, hey, we need to step up. And the coaches have a couple extra days to see what's up. And also, I believe they're going out recruiting and finding some JUCO players as well, which they need. So with that, guys, just wanted to drop a quick reaction pod to the game, let you guys know some of my thoughts. A really, really difficult night in New Orleans. We will be back next week. Mustangs obviously will be practicing on Thanksgiving and all of that leading up to the game against Memphis. We'll be there to cover it the whole way and see if SMU can bounce back with a 7-5 regular season by beating the Memphis Tigers. But they suffer a really tough loss to Tulane, 59-24, the Green Wave win for the first time against SMU in 7 years. So kudos to them. Willie Fritz and his staff do a great job. I've got a chance to meet a lot of them and know them, and a good bit of their roster too from covering recruiting. So they do a good job. 59-24, unacceptable though for SMU. So with that, guys, going to wrap up this edition of the podcast. I know you guys didn't enjoy it, but hope you guys give it a listen and talk about it on the Pony Express message board. So with that, have a great weekend, everyone. Headed out to the Big Easy this weekend to enjoy all that is to enjoy about New Orleans, and hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll catch you next week with another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast.